Well, it looks like a TXV. Smells like a TXV. Tastes like a TXV, but is it? We'll find out. This is actually a Sporlan oil differential valve. So, oil regulator valve, also performance pots. Let's see if there's any other numbers on here. It's actually a Hussman pot number and a Sporlan pot number. So, Sporlan, you know, right there, Y825-2 and Hussman 260318. From my understanding, it's actually like a Hussman specific pots for Hussman's racks. So, we're just going to look at it really quick. It looks just like a TXV, but it's actually kind of the opposite, but we're going to look at it. So first off, just like a TXV, we have this little cap that covers the stem, and now we're going to open it up and kind of look at it further. Also, just like a TXV, we have a power head, but in this time, instead of a sensing bulb, we have the in pressure and we have the out pressure. And if you look inside there, it might be kind of hard to see. Maybe I can turn on my light on my camera. Ooh, there we go. And you can see that little capillary tubes gets drilled in and brazed in there, and that actually just, you know, registers the pressure from the outside. So that pressure goes through this capillary tube and expands this diaphragm, and that diaphragm pushes down on this pin right there. If we open the bottom, we have, just like a TXV, a spring, and when we turn this in, it tensions the spring, and when we turn it, well, to the right, it tensions the spring, and we turn it to the left, it loosens the spring. Now, the next step we have is we actually have this, I'm not really sure what we could call it, maybe a diffuser plate? I'm not sure. So, but a TXV would have a wedge or something. This has maybe a diffuser plate. Looks like some type of something. But the way that this differs from a TXV, it's actually interesting to me, is this pin cannot go through it. Where a lot of TXVs, the pin will go through. So what actually happens is, and I'll pull it out and show you. So it actually works in the reverse way of a TXV. So if you actually tighten it, so turn it to the right, your oil pressure will increase, and if you loosen it, your oil pressure will decrease. It's actually the opposite of TXV. Why? Well, if we look in there, you can see there's a hole there, right? Little hole, and so you see there's a hole right there that the refrigerant comes in. So you got your high pressure oil coming in at 180, and then you got your lower pressure oil leaving at 20 above suction, right? And you have that little hole where your oil will go into, and then this device slowly releases it to your oil line that leads to your compressor and lowers the pressure for you, right? So with this pin, the way that it's done is you can see you have a metered pin, right? Where you have a lower diameter at the bottom and a larger diameter at the top, right? So what happens is when this is pushed all the way down with this diaphragm or whatever, when this spring doesn't have a lot of tension, the thicker diameter part at the top, this part, will actually block that hole 100%. So now the oil can't actually get through there. So if you actually loosen this up as far as it'll actually be an extremely low pressure coming out of the out. But if you actually tighten this, it'll push the pin out, so it'll put force on this, diffuser plate or whatever you want to call it, and it'll push this pin out, which will cause that, lower diameter part to go into that hole, and it'll allow refrigerant to escape through and go out, pressurizing the other side. So, yeah, I thought this was worth showing. Very similar to a TXV, except this diaphragm uses pressure, and turning it right will actually increase it, and turning left will actually decrease it because of the way that the pin is machined. And the last thing is, obviously, there's this equalization line that hooks up to your suction. So there's a little chamber inside there that fills the suction pressure, and that also helps, that if you have, like, let's say 20 psi of pressure there, and then you have your 180 there, it's going to act as a less pressure differential, which will make your refrigerant flow into it not as aggressively, which is another way of regulating the pressure. So anyway, thought this would be worth showing. So, you know, we got the spring, we have this tensioner, we have this little cover, we have a diffusion plate, we have a power head, and we have a piston. So, like a TXV, but works in reverse of a TXV. Anyway, thanks. Hope you learned something. Please like, subscribe, and all that. Yeah, that's how you do it.